no doubt this will be a very well-attended meeting.
Had some workshops gather one person. We've had some workshops gather 20.
Yep. Well, this one's so
Right now
exciting.
people love to talk money, don't they?
Yep.
Okay, it's 3:30. Give her another half minute or so. Still no Lucy?
I just sent her a text message, Mayor.
Okay. We'll go ahead and get started anyway. Okay. Notice hereby given the City Council of the City of Alpine, Texas will hold a workshop meeting at 3:30 p.m. on Tuesday, July 7th, 2020 via Zoom conference in the City of Alpine, Texas. Meeting login details may be found at www.cityofalpine.com for the purpose of considering the attached agenda. This notice is posted pursuant to the Texas Open Meeting Act, Section 551.043, Texas Government Code. Notice hereby given the City Council of the City of Alpine, Texas will hold a regular meeting at 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday, July 7, 2020 via Zoom conference in the City of Alpine, Texas. Meeting login information will be again at www.cityofalpine.com for the purpose of considering the attached agendas. The notice is pursuant to the Texas Open Meeting Act, Section 551.043, Texas Government Code. Members of the audience will be provided. Jesus, I'm having trouble with my computer. Give me a second here. Members of the audience will be provided an opportunity to address the council on any agenda that item after determination of quorum and proof of notice of the meeting. Zoom meetings, comments and question rules and procedures are listed in the city website. Remarks will be limited to a total of 3 minutes per person. Please email your name to Megan Antrim, director.finance@ci.alpine.tx.us. If you have a petition or other information pertaining to your subject, please email. And beforehand, all names wanting to make public comments for the meeting will be queued up and given to the mayor at the section of the meeting. The mayor will call on those individuals one at a time. On our meeting, moderator will take you off mute to make your comments. This function will be the same as on our existing sign-up sheet in council chambers. Please note, you must include your full name first and last, along with the ward you reside in or have business interest in. If you do not live or own property in the city of Alpine, please state that in your email. State law generally prohibits the council from discussing or taking any action on any issue not included on the agenda. But if appropriate, the council may schedule the topic for future discussion or refer the matter to staff. Though personal attacks on council members or city staff will be allowed, the mayor or city council members may call a point of order to stop personal attacks. If an individual continues to personally attack an elected official or staff member, either meeting, they may be barred. Call the meeting to order. Will please stand up and we'll have the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag
of
of the United States of America and to the republic
Which stands
Which is
one nation
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
With
liberty,
for all.
justice.
Justice for all.
Okay. City Secretary, do we have a quorum?
Mayor, we do have a quorum and the notice was posted at 1 p.m. on July 2nd, 2020.
Okay. Now we'll go ahead and get started with the workshop, and I'll turn this over to our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Megan, you can go ahead and put the presentation up on the screen. And when I sent out the final presentation yesterday, I did note that, there's about 30 slides here. We've got to, call it an hour, 45 minutes. It's probably about 4 minutes per slide. I think with getting the information out ahead of time, it'll allow us to move through the slides and just focus on the ones that we have more content and discussion. We did send out the 5-year capital plan previously several weeks ago, and then also had the survey that went out and captured the responses on those. So based on those two outputs, as well as our dialogue today, we've been working in parallel with our staff right now on basically a draft budget for council to review. Megan and I have been going through that the last several days. We anticipate post today's meeting that we'll be able to get something in your hands by Thursday or Friday of this week for council to review prior to the next budget workshop on the 21st. So we're right on track with what we had committed to earlier this year. So any initial questions or thoughts just kind of on the process of the sequence that we're going to go through over the next hour and 45 minutes?
Good.
Okay. So on the 5-year capital plan, one of the things that we were working towards this year was really getting all of our departments to recommit to thinking through what they needed to help run those departments from a capital purchase perspective and thinking out multiple years into the future. And certainly by charter, we talk about having a 5-year capital plan, but beyond the charter, it's an excellent practice to be engaged in. As we went through the process with our staff this year, and we do have several new department heads, a lot of the focus seemed to be kind of on what do I need next year. And so we're really working not only on what we need in this next fiscal year, but then really thinking through that window of time, 3 and 5 years out there. So my sense is over time we'll continue to evolve and get better with the plan. So slide 3 really is an overarching look at our airport. The airport is certainly nice in the sense that the majority of our funding there is a 90-10 split, where the state and the feds are paying for 90% of the capital work. We've talked specifically about those top 2 projects, the lighting project and the seal coat project. And those are, in motion. And we've made some of our payments already, like for the engineering portion of that lighting project. We also did get some money in from the CARES grant that's helping us offset some of the capital tied to these particular projects. We look down the list, probably the piece that sticks out most to me is the AWAS replacement relocation. A lot of that stems from we're continuing to get growth at the airport, new hangars, new folks interested, and that is inevitably going to happen where we're going to either have to probably relocate the AWAS. And Rick, you may have some additional insight since you're the one pilot on our council relative to the AWAS or any of these other items here.
I think, the AWAS is really driven by the expansion. I think getting on the table is something to look at. I think the question will be when we can afford it. It's going to be driven by having proximity of a hangar within 500 feet. And right now there's build out opportunities going further to the east on the airport before we'd have to go to further to the south. So I think that's a timing question. And that's presuming that it continues to operate because it's really kind of old. But the good news is it still works. I think the other one, Eric, on the additional seal code, is that to do existing taxiways? Is that what they're looking at there? That one I just wasn't familiar with.
Yes, that's
Yep.
the other piece out there. So.
Yeah, so that's a chunk of change. I think getting the seal coat down on runway 119 and getting the lights taken care of will go a long ways. Then I think we just have to look at affordability is when it's time to move the AWAS and do the additional seal coat on the taxiways.
Yeah, and the airport certainly drives a lot of traffic with packages being delivered in, and as well as the medical transport out. Certainly with COVID, we've had multiple folks flown out of here, as well as other type of health needs.
Yep.
Yeah. Got a question.
Sure.
On the AWAS, Ricky mentioned that it's kind of lapidated, correct?
Yes, it's been around a long time.
Yeah. Wouldn't it make sense to start really seriously looking at moving it before the cost drives up?
Well, so you're right, Mayor. The challenge is most of that cost is about, in part, moving it. So if
Right.
I think that's the real driver, it's going to cost the $150,000 to relocate it, and it really is buying new equipment, running the cable that will move it. So that's really what that primary cost is about. Thus far, not a big driver from an expense standpoint.
Mhm.
When the weather's clear, it's not a big issue. It really is important when you get into instrument flying, and that'll be important for air ambulance when they got to come in and pick up a passenger and medevac them out. So in my mind, that's where the driver is. But right now, I don't see it as a huge issue. And my sense is, 2 years, what we probably ought to do is do an assessment on it in the near term, which would be fairly inexpensive just to get a sense of end of life. I think that'll inform council a lot better about when we really need to put that in the plan.
Right. That was kind of my point. If we could do an assessment early on, and then we have an idea of what it's going to cost.
Yep.
Because the cost will continue to drive upwards as we get along in time. So that was something that's been behind my mind about it. Is the cost will be driven up considerably, or will it be just a slight bump in the road as far as the increase on it?
Yeah, I think right now maintenance will take care of it. It's like the rotator beacon. Well, that thing's about, you can hardly see it. It's a green and white light. I came in the other night. You can't see it. It's almost useless. So getting that fixed this next fiscal year will be helpful, particularly for a night flying.
Okay.
Rick and the mayor, this is Megan. We do have a yearly contract with Vaisala on the AWAS maintenance. If you guys like, I can send them an email asking them what they think are the lifeline of the AWAS is, and they may be able to provide a recommendation if the basic maintenance for the next couple of years will suffice, or if there's something more that we need to address.
That'd be great, Megan. That'd be
Yeah.
very helpful.
Yeah, that'll be terrific. Thank you, Megan.
Right. Anything else on this slide?
Yes, I do have a question on that, Eric. I noticed that the very last item, an update on airport master plan and airport layout plan, which I think is great. But that's 2 years down the road, apparently, according to the outline. It would seem to me like there should be some focus, maybe sooner, on the airport master plan, which then includes all the safety measures that are needed and should be in place for, of course, safety or the people that are coming in and out of the airport. Safety is to me very, very important, but it seems to me like planning is also just as important. And if we can get out and a master plan and then a general layout of the airport. And in that master plan, not only include the things that are needed to make it safe, but also what is the recommendations and the essence of the airport for the future? How is that going to help lure business? How is that going to help all of Alpine? Just a thought.
Yeah, so when we look at all of these projects that are queued up here, these are ones that we certainly have identified and worked back with the TxDOT planner on, but then we're also beholden to their priority schedule too, since they're bringing 90% of the money to the table. And right now, the lighting project was of utmost safety concern, as well as the seal coat. When that taxi and ramp project was done, one of the lead engineers at TxDOT determined that he wanted to make sure runway 119 was seal coated. So part of that queues up in there. From a planning perspective, we've gone through some different exercises with the Airport Advisory Board on looking at hangar expansion. And generally the new hangars that have gone in have followed that specific plan, which kind of goes back to the 2005-06 timeframe when they had pulled together a master plan at that juncture. So we continue to follow that particular plan.
Just another question that comes into mind right quick, Eric. Is there any type of an airport user's fee in place right now for those that use the airport?
Yes, they all pay a land lease. So if you own a hangar out there, you pay a land lease back to the city for that, and then you pay property tax on top of your assessed value of your facility out there. And of course, the majority of them buy the majority of their fuel from our airport as well, which is the primary driver for paying our staff and our basic maintenance at the airport.
Yeah, Ramon, it's like when you drive your car, you pay a gas tax. And so everyone buying fuel out there pays a fuel charge that pays for what comes back from the state and the feds. So that's how you get reimbursed for that. But there is, as Eric said, it's property tax for those who have hangars, and you're paying a pretty healthy fuel fee for buying fuel there.
Any idea to date how much revenue that generates for the city?
Well, the city generates about $500,000 a year for the airport.
The rentals.
No, rentals is very minimal. We actually have 30-year leases that are in place. I actually pushed to get the lease updated. It was originally 10 cents a square foot. We did an update. When I built the two hangars that my hangars are part of, there's an automatic cost of living increase. It goes up, what, Megan, 2.5% to 5% a year, depending upon cost of living, because the city had not taken action to do increases, so we made it automatic.
Correct. So if you're on the CPI, the new lease, it's based on the consumer price index, and it's been roughly about 1.9 to 2.4% the past couple of years.
Yep.
And then if you're not on the new lease, council has approved a 1 cent per square foot increase, and we're currently at 15 cents a square foot.
Yep.
We roughly bring in a little over 14,000 in just the leases.
Yeah, it's not a big number, Ramon.
Yeah.
It's not even one load of fuel.
Now, remember, the other thing I would say, those buildings we receive property taxes for those buildings. So I've got two hangars out there. I pay property tax that comes back into the city based upon the roughly 39 cents per $100 value. That comes back to the city as well. So not only do the hangar owners pay a lease to the city for the land, all of the owners pay property tax for their buildings.
Good.
Any other questions? All right. Next slide. Where we've got our parks and streets, public works, and certainly higher dollar items here. When we look at the top section on the parks, the splash pad was something that we had allocated 25% towards previously. Marcy's working, as well as the Friends of Big Bend Parks, on other donations from outside entities. But then the next two items are ones that Robert's identified that we're going to need out in the future. And then the grants, the Texas Park and Wildlife grants, those phases we're eligible to apply for in December of this year. You know, the bigger item out there was Pueblo Nuevo Park. We talked about previously, that's about a $400,000. We got a 50-50 grant from Texas Parks and Wildlife. It would require us to contribute close to $200,000. It's something that council will want to consider as we work through the draft budget in this next workshop. Down on the streets, these are items that you know, Eddie's targeting this next year, really. Front end loader and wash bay construction are two items that, as he thinks about his Sealco project, what would help him be more effective is the front end loader. And then of course our wash bay construction is trying to keep not only our city assets, but also the city vehicles, those that are leased and purchased, in better shape aesthetically. And then longer term, looking at a couple new dump trucks, a small maintainer so that we can get in some tighter to fit places. And then Marcy's going to be working on the CDBG grant using some revitalization funds. That one's pretty nice because it's only 3.5% on the city side. So questions on these?
Eric, the only question I have is remind me what a maintainer is. I think of skip loaders and bobcats and all. What's a maintainer?
Yeah, so Eddie uses the word maintainer like a small, almost really a small front end loader or small bobcat.
Okay, gotcha.
So when you think about, there's that section on the creek that we can't get to because we can't pass our larger.
Yep. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
All right, next slide. Any questions on this one? I'm going to try to come through these, so please stop me if there's stuff on this, because I know we've got several slides. City administration, building services, the old schoolhouse, aka Sunshine House. We've got some good news on that, and that is the COVID funding. We are eligible to utilize that for the renovation, and an opportunity to spread our employees out, create social distancing. I think it's a real coup for the city, okay, because you have a wonderful historic asset there that if we sold it off to somebody else, it may not get the care and concern that's really needed. So we're targeting going after that. Marcy just got feedback on that this past week. So
wow.
You know, the other couple items we have there, security cameras, as we continue to expand out, we'll continue to add cameras into our portfolio, keep a good eye on our building assets. And then something else that we're kicking around on our economic development that we talked about a couple meetings ago was, do we look at a small incubator space to help drive economic development, give people a place to work out of? So something, you know, 2022, probably really won't see this fiscal year, but Marcy, Heather, Chris, myself are working on the economic development project there. With our building services, pretty straightforward. There's some additional technology upgrades. We are in need of a new vehicle for code enforcement. If you see what Tony Catani's in, he's in that old vehicle that Polanco was using before I started with the city. So it seemed old back then, and it's even older now. Then the other piece that we're looking at, Marcy's working on the grant now, and that's a planning and capacity, strategic growth and development plan through the CDBG. She had talked about that a couple meetings ago. Megan and I are working with her, and she'll be initiating that application for the city. So more to come on that.
You know, Eric, one of the things in my mind that might be helpful for council is to see, for lack of a better term, a map of all the buildings we own. And just to have a short discussion at some future meeting, and it can be part of the budget cycle, we'll get together maybe on the 21st, on what your game plan is for each of those buildings. So we got the old firehouse, we've got the Sunshine House. You know, you've talked about, do we make some modifications to the current city building? I mean, you got lots of things that would be helpful in your utility sites. I think it'd just be worthwhile to kind of walk through those and say, okay, given the budget cycle, here's what the recommendations are from a capital standpoint. Here's the buildings we got. Here's our game plan, and here's what we think the useful life of those buildings is and how far it goes out.
Yep.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that's a smart way to approach the, first of all, find out where the buildings are, what condition they're in, and how they can be used. I do have a question on the old schoolhouse, Eric. How many people are you thinking about moving in there? I'm thinking about the cost for heating, lighting, cooling for that building. Will we be able to afford it if we start doing that this year?
Yeah, so we would move our billing as well as our finance team over there. So that would give us from a area to work, a workspace and a lobby area, give us a much larger lobby for people that come to want to do business, to buy the utilities or permitting. We will have a little bit of an increase in our utilities. What we're seeing right now, though, is this particular year we're trending down on our spend with our utilities, and so I think with our normal spend pattern, we could easily absorb that.
How many people are we moving?
That would be 1, 2, 3, 5, 8.
8 people total?
8 total.
And we
And
have
then we
records over
would,
there as well.
Yeah, that would leave Cynthia and myself here, Lorena here part-time, and then we'd have an office, certainly that the mayor could use, as well as continue to maintain council chambers for any council member that wants to host a small meeting in the council chambers.
And you figure the old schoolhouse will be big enough, adequate enough to house 8 people and equipment, files, and all that good stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, it's huge.
Ramon, just
Yes.
to add, we've been actually budgeting the Sunshine House utilities, the electricity, since the Sunshine House actually was in there. So they ran a full kitchen, plus they had a computer room, plus they had 4 different offices. And budget-wise, the electricity at the highest was $2,700 for the whole year. So it's not a huge difference in the electricity. It may actually be less. We're currently paying the electricity on that building. And of course, the city doesn't charge its for water.
And my only other comment on the old schoolhouse is good luck on Target grants from the Texas Historical Commission. So,
But that's why we went the CRF route, the Corona Relief Fund. So.
okay. Question, again, on the security cameras placed across town with tie-ins to the police department. I read somewhere else that I guess you're thinking about 23 additional cameras to what's out there now?
Mhm. Yes.
And they're all tied into the police department.
Right.
May I ask, what is the purpose for these cameras, and who are they? What's the intended use? People in Alpine know that there are security cameras out there.
Yeah, so we currently do have security cameras in multiple locations. This would add to that. I would think that most people that have come in and seen some of the different cameras out there are aware that they're there. This would give us an opportunity to have better visibility to all of our access doors at each city building. Just helps us from a timing perspective. If there's any sort of vandalism or type of crime. It just gives us a better view into what's going on. Plus, with our city buildings primarily being on some main thoroughfares, we'll also have a view to, if there's another crime and police needed to look back at traffic, they'd have access to that too. If you remember back in the Zuzu Vert case, that was something that the investigators were really trying to find, was information from a variety of different security cameras around town to see if they could pinpoint the coming and going of Zuzu and Robert. So it'll just help.
So the security cameras across town, are they to be placed in locations for security of public buildings, of local government buildings, or is it more than that?
Government buildings. So another location that we're targeting is in the Civic Center. We want to make sure we've got camera in there in case any damage were to occur when we rented it out.
Eric,
So
I have
good
a
to-
question.
Sure.
On the vehicles, how many are left that aren't renewed or that are old that we need to replace?
Total across the city?
Yeah, like how many are old? Or do we still have a lot of them old that need to be replaced already?
We've crossed more than half of our vehicles are leased vehicles now. I don't know the exact number that we still own. Do you know that off the top of your head, Megan?
We're about 60-40. So we have about 60% of all leased and 40% that aren't. But we do have several that are still fairly new. The police department had bought some new vehicles, like brand new, not used. The gas department did in 2016-17. So we probably have about 20-25 vehicles that they're older, but they're still usable.
Thank you.
Eric, another question. The incubator space for economic development sounds great. Are we talking about that as to be included into the renovation of the old schoolhouse, or is it a totally separate building on the side, or renovation of another public service building that we have? What's the deal with that?
That would be a totally separate building, Ramon. So think of across Holland Avenue, close to the Civic Center. Jay Fielder has that old building the public defender used. He's been trying to sell that. Something of that size, maybe 2,500 to 3,500 square foot.
So it's buying an additional building and not so much renovating one we already have.
Correct. I think commercial real estate is going to be at a grab over the next several years as people continue to work from home and push people out of conjoined workspaces. It's going to be a little road to hoe for the commercial real estate market. Good. Next slide, Megan.
I'm just going to interrupt for 1 second. Ramon, do you have a dog in your vicinity? I have him muted. Let me unmute you. 1 second.
Can you hear me now?
I can. You have a dog behind you?
Yes. Go ahead and mute, and I'll go take care of the situation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Right on. Jump forward on the visitor center. Now that we've got Heather over there, she's been very assertive in mapping out a good project plan for the next several years. She certainly has the enthusiasm to try to front end load stuff. So we've tried to spread it out a little bit, but certainly she's done a lot of just grunt work, making the outside look nicer. But we do have those posts outside and the exterior lighting and some benches that we're targeting this next year. We had looked at an HVAC, though our existing swamp cooler went bad. So we're going to go ahead and replace that swamp cooler this year. That will probably push that HVAC out a couple years. I didn't necessarily have a challenge with buying a new swamp cooler because we can always reposition that to another building in the future. And then the rest of it is more, kind of interior work to keep that building thriving. I think the paving we've done this year has been fantastic, and it's becoming a very welcoming point. The outdoor gazebo concept is something that we see in other communities. If you've been down to Big Bend National Park, you're coming back up through, you see kind of that kiosk that you can stop in and gather information from. So that's the concept here with the outdoor gazebos. Do we look at going ahead and putting a couple strategic around town to encourage visitors? So nothing really overly high dollar here, and all of it would fund out of the hot fund in future years.
Got a question before we get off the slide, Eric. The other restroom in the visitor center, has that been repaired or is it still out of order?
It's still out of order. We just used the one.
Okay, well, some of these funds be allocated to clear that issue?
It's not something that we prioritized, only because I think the use of the visitor center has been fairly light. I'd have to go back and talk to Andrew and Heather on that.
Okay.
Yeah. Next slide. All right, so police and animal control, Chief Martins. A lot of these top ones were really targeting getting grants to cover them, but the tasers, body cams, these, are general equipment for our officers. And then the other piece that Chief Martin and Lorena have been working on relative to municipal court and PD is the software for ticketing and how we tie into courts. We've used, name slipped me, the group that we use right now. I want to say Code something or other. Megan, what's the name of the current software we're using
For
the police? CopSync.
there's
CopSync.
there's
Yeah.
Southern Software, and there's Code Red.
Yeah, and Southern Software. So we're really looking at, going through, making an adjustment there. Moving down, the other couple things that Chief and I have talked about is uniforms, ensuring that our team looks good.
That was my fault. Sorry.
Okay. And presentable. We've had a little bit of turnover on our staff, but we think things are starting to stabilize there. Be something that we'd really fund through our expense budget. License plate readers. These are very helpful, and we see as the movement towards more artificial intelligence out there. A lot of larger cities are adopting the LPRs, getting feeds as far as cars to watch out for. And so the LPRs are very helpful. And then the holding cells, something we'll talk about later today in our normal council meeting, but certainly something that we have to keep on the radar as a city based on our relationship with the county and the ability to take people that we've arrested and put them in the county. So my preference, honestly, would be not to have to progress opening holding cells. from a city perspective. It's a lot of work. We'd have to add staff. You know, there's certainly other initiatives we're working on right now from a city perspective that this would take us a little off dead center on those. But we definitely need to have it as a, you know, as an item out there that we're aware of. K9, Chief Martin, something he's used in the past and something we want to consider in the future. Do we add K9 back into our team, so to speak?
Eric, have we had dogs before?
We have.
Okay.
We have. So,
And just real quick, if I may, just FYI, all of the cars that are owned that are at the PD are over 100,000 miles, and one of them is over 150,000 miles.
Yeah.
And they're all used cars. They weren't new cars.
yeah, a couple of those we bought new before I had left in 2017. But generally speaking, we've been trying to run in and use the lease program with our PD.
Mhm.
The other piece that we're working on right now is our asset program. Megan's getting that lined up for us so that we'll auction off some of our older equipment and assets. Some of that's going to be coming from PD, as we do have some older vehicles there. Then on our animal control, certainly cameras, expanding kennels, shade structure. These are all items of importance for this year. And then AC units and vehicle in the future for them. And we did buy a part for the cremator this year, but we certainly are going to have to look at replacing that in the not too distant future. It is a service that we provide to the community as well as utilize with some of the euthanasia that we have to do, primarily with feral cats. Questions?
Yes, Eric, a couple of questions. One is, what is a license plate reader?
So think about, just a camera that is looking at a passing vehicle, their license. Of course, in Texas, we front and back license. We have plates on the front and back. Some states only require a back, but the LPR reads the number and can provide would provide an alert to you. So how they're used in a lot of situations is they'll alert back your dispatch if there is a car that or a license plate that you're on the lookout for. So that's one way that they're used. Also, if you once again, like we talked about with security cameras, if you're looking for particular activity that came across a main thoroughfare. So say you had your LPR out there in Holland, you can go back and look to see if a particular license plate crossed a threshold during a window of time and when that occurred. So very helpful.
Will they be mounted on patrol cars so that the officer can actually read the plates before taking
Yeah, so
action?
they're actually kind of neat technology. You can do both. What we're talking about here are more stationary ones, but you could have LPRs mounted on vehicles as well.
Okay. Okay. The canines, interesting that we had them before. Is there any way that we can get recruits from the local animal compound for use within the police department? Can those be trained?
No. These are special bred dogs.
So they have to be rented or bought?
You buy them.
Trained.
And trained. Yes.
Mhm.
It's not. They're bred and designed and trained to do this type of work.
How many dogs are you thinking about?
Just one.
Just one. And it'll be used mostly for Drug issues?
That's a primary use, yes.
And just real quick, Chief Martin says that the LPR is permanently mounted and it will give you 24/7 coverage.
Where will they be mounted? Somewhere in the city or?
Yeah. So we target main thoroughfares, Ramon. So like the highways in and out of town. Any other questions?
Okay.
All right. Next slide, Megan. All right. We talked a little bit about that software and fire department, the ladder truck, CDBG. We're working on that grant. That's another one that Marcy's working on right now for that ladder truck. Any questions there?
The only question I have, Eric, is I don't see the cost for the software.
Yeah, so if we go back the slide before,
Is it
that,
in there?
yeah, 25 to 40, yeah, we would incorporate our municipal court module in with that.
Never mind,
Okay.
got it, thanks.
And next slide, Megan. And then our utilities, top part is water, wastewater, and the bottom part is our gas team. SCADA, we talked about that at the last council meeting, some of the struggles we're having with that existing system that had been put in. Also, our electrical system is out there at the wastewater treatment plant is needing absolute work. The other pieces, safety program, something Scott and I have talked about, making sure we're focused on that. The backhoe gets used all the time. Obviously, we have several leaks, we have new taps, those types of things. So it's we're queuing up time that we're going to need a new backhoe. Bigger items here, new sewer lines, east side of the city. And we talked about how we put in the collection system to handle from really the east side of Highway 90, 6790, and come back and tie into the Holiday Inn Express, the Old Marathon Highway lift station, the Stookie lift station. Be important for additional growth, plus our responsibilities to provide that collection system over there. Put in there the automated metering system. These are expensive to implement, but something that over time we may want to contemplate as a city. There's certainly good application for users around leak detection, how you cut your water usage, things of that nature. It's a high price tag, but something that we're not going to look at this year, but potentially in the future. And then moving down the list, the Mooskies wells, refurbishing those 2 inactive wells is a priority for us. We, right now, with the lack of moisture, we've got a ton of people out there watering, which is good for our water billing, but not so good for, we'd like to have a little bit more production added back in. So that would give us that capacity. And then, of course, expanding our effluent distribution, that ground tank storage at the golf course, some of that's that project we're working on with the university. Had a chance to talk to Pete Gallego about that. He's very supportive. And so that will be a good thing for us. And then enhancement on the drying beds. I know Scott's talked about that, getting a couple of those reactive, even though we've got the belt press, still would be good using those drying beds, and that's what the system was originally built to do. And then some manhole additions and work on clarifiers. And we move down into gas. These are, specific equipment that Randy's looking at needing as we work through our DIMP program and new taps and new things that we're doing. The rectifier, if you remember several years back, we put in a new rectifier on the south side of the city, not too far from where the food pantry location is now. But we are going to need to put in a new rectifier off of Fighting Buck Avenue this next year. So we spent a little less than that, the 50,000. So we went ahead and projected that at 50,000. The other pieces are combustible gas indicators, more safety for our employees. And then AC unit for the facility. Randy and I kind of think a few years out, we're going to need to do some work on that AC there. But as we do the assessment on our properties as a whole, we'll tie that into that program. Okay. Questions?
So Eric, what I didn't see in this list was a thought process relative to sewer line, water line replacement from a broader strategy standpoint. We got a plan for the roads, but I didn't see it, in terms of the underground. Is that something you plan on working on this next year and coming back, and we'd see that in the next capital plan?
Yes. Yeah, that is. And we're planning on starting with the collection side of the infrastructure first.
Yep.
So when we think about coming back in from Mooskies, when we think about coming back in from Sunny Glen, those are our largest areas that we tend to have the biggest breaks. Plus, they're the most detrimental to our water supply when we have breaks. And so we've got to weave that into this plan and get that started this next year.
Yep. Okay, good.
Other questions? Just looking at from a timing perspective, we used an hour and 20 minutes. So now we have 35 minutes for our budget survey responses. I'd be glad to try to go through these a little bit quicker. Maybe we can flash the slides up, and folks can offer any comments or questions. I hope the responses I sent to some of them yesterday were helpful, and really thinking about from as we look at kind of our goals, we've been focusing a lot on infrastructure, which I think is in alignment with the comments that we're receiving from council. Paving's been a priority. The stabilizing our utility infrastructure. On the gas side, we've had a good DIMP infrastructure plan. Water, wastewater, especially wastewater, we've invested a lot of dollars in getting that wastewater treatment plant back up. But then continuing to work on the infrastructure side there. Jump to that next slide for me, Megan. I think the other piece is coming back to council over the next couple of months with a comprehensive look at all of our city properties and what it's going to take to maintain those over time. And I don't think the only one that really is out there of significance that we could potentially sell would be the post office. But there's a risk there because we own it in 10 years from now. And provided the U.S. Postal Service is still paying money, they're paying pretty good money for those spaces. So probably not something we would want to sell. Slide 14, Megan. Go up 13, I'm sorry. Yeah. Paving. Earlier this year, we approved the 2-phase project with Lance Jarrett, and he's working through phase 1 this year. Phase 2, we're working into the budget for this next year. And then as you're seeing with Eddie, I mean, he's like a machine out there. Once he got the seal coating started, He's just mowing through. He'll get north of 100 blocks done. The end output is you know, we're going to have 25% of our streets touched over this year and next year. And I think if we lather and rinse and do that again in 2022 to 2024, then we will at least feel like our streets are getting back in really good shape.
So, hey, Ramon, I just have a question because I didn't understand that. I must have missed something. It says in your comments, one will Ward 2 benefit from bed allocations for paving in city and rebuilding. It looks like, you know, only the affluent wards are getting it in Alpine. Frankly, I don't understand that. We all agreed what the plan was. So what am I missing?
It seems like all of the paving is right now focusing on downtown, and I agree with it. But when you look at what's going on down there, and then when you look what's in Ward 2, there's quite a difference. We don't have any city block seal coats up in this area unless they're planned for the future and I've forgotten. But it seems like all the focus is on city block seal coats, which is the more business sector of town, where in Ward 2, it's basically just patching potholes.
The
Yeah.
the whole strategy is when Eddie and I went through and looked at and ranked the streets, you know, Eddie was the primary driver in that, and we really don't look at a ward perspective. We look at which streets we can save, and that's where he's focusing his seal coat. The 51 blocks, we all agreed, were the worst ones in the city. We targeted downtown this year to really focus on the vibrancy of downtown. And the other ones that are queued up for next year will get done next year.
Hope so.
You did put up a schedule, am I correct, Eric?
Yes, yes. And we'll continue to review that. Eddie will be queued up this evening and talk about the next 18 blocks he's going to do. So. Slide 14, Megan. You know, the airport, I know we talked about that on the 5-year capital plan. I think we've got a good strategy out there. I appreciate the comments on having the city pay the arteries and the hangar builders pay the extensions. That really falls in line with what we would expect of a developer if they were developing out a city property, that they would have to put in those substreets there. We're certainly maintaining all the proper main arteries in and out. But otherwise, you know, we could spend 40, 50 grand in a heartbeat adding extra taxiway to somebody's hangar, and we're not getting grant monies on that. So that's a challenge for the city.
Quick question on that, Eric. On that entryway to the airport, that entryway is a little shoddy. Kind of needs to be resurfaced. Have we looked at that?
You know, it's a good question, Mayor. We, Eddie and I really haven't talked about that one, but we probably could seal coat it and preserve it.
Okay.
Let me put that one down for he and I to look at. All right, next slide. The parks, I think the splash pad's going to be interesting because we allocated the dollars, and now as we think about COVID and is that the right type of equipment out there? You know, I've asked Kirsten Moody to dig into that a little bit for us from a Parks Board perspective. You know, I think the Parks Board pulled together a really nice plan for Pueblo Nuevo. It would really be nice to be able to add a park in that quadrant of town, because we really, if we think about that neighborhood and you box it in from, say, the railroad track out to Lechuguilla Road and then to the east of Highway 118, you know, those kids that are growing in that neighborhood, they don't really have a park. I mean, they can slip over to the soccer field, but, you know, Sul Ross uses that heavily. I mean, they've got men's and women's soccer teams. So, I don't know, you know, I still see that as something that from a community we really want to think hard about. But Lucy, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm agreeing with you. We do need to really develop it. I'm seeing more and more kids in the neighborhood, except right now they're playing around on the street around that
Yeah.
block. They don't go into the Saroff fields at all.
They don't.
No, they don't. They will play every now and then on the dirt.
You know, I think there's a property owner just to the east of you as well. They've got the 22 acres. Jacqueline Bowe
Yeah.
and her husband, and they're contemplating wanting to do some type of development out there. Which my sense is that would drive some more kids into that proximity too.
Yes.
So we're circling around this one. I think we need to really try to figure out a way to do something there.
I mean, and it would be, you know, good, like I put there, you know, to just get the adults to go out and do some exercise, including the kids, just to get them out. But I don't want them in the streets.
Right. Right. Well, it's nice that we have that patch of land there.
Yes.
Okay. Any other thoughts on this one?
Can
I
we
think,
apply? Are we able to apply for more grants or just one?
well, it's the one, but we can add multiple facets to the Texas Parks and Wildlife Grant. The thing is, we do have to have our matching funds allocated for it. So, but you do have 3 years to implement, right? So you, this may be something that we just have to phase out over 2 to 3 years. And, you know, if we had to allocate 60,000 a year towards it, you know, we could accomplish that, or 64,000 a year, 65,000 a year over 3 years. You have to complete the project in, they prefer 3, but no less than 4 years.
Okay.
And then a lot of some of the other comments here were things that we'll pick up in our supply budget on some additional picnic tables, grills, things of that nature. Really working back with Robert on some of the addition. We did add doggy bags this year. I think he ordered 20 of them. He's placed about 20 around town. So we do have a great pet population in Alpine, and we prefer they don't poop on the parks, but they they keep that cleaned up. So. Good. Slide 16. The 5-year capital plan, we spent 1 hour and 20 minutes on that. 17. When we go to 17, Megan. All right, utility bill. I want to make sure we touched on this today. So back in early April, we had questions from residents asking about cutting our bills in half or whatnot for a month. And, you know, it really drove us into analyzing where we were billing. I mean, right now we're at 65% on our water, 49% on our sewer, and that's compared to similar sized cities in the state of Texas. You know, one of the pieces that we were trying to accomplish, I know back in 2016, was to try to get on a every other year increase. So we executed on that in 2016. In 2018, there wasn't an increase. We would have been on that every other year to increase rates again in 2020. Certainly with COVID, that's created a kind of real stop and think about it. There's more to the utility billing than just the monthly rate, but it's what we charge for taps. Right now, we charge below cost to put in taps. When you add our labor, our material, the impact to the roads, all of that, we're under billing on our taps. And so what I'm doing right now is kind of breaking it down into the hard costs, the one-time costs, as well as what a billing rate increase would look like for the continuous costs. And, you know, my sense is we're going to really have to look at implementing this when we get the draft budget out. One of the pieces that I'm working with Megan on is looking at our, we've been working with Scott on our staff model, but looking at what that cost overlay would look like. So if we added 3 people in water and 2 people in sewer, what that would look like against our current budget and our current spend rate. Now, the challenge that we're going to have, obviously, if we add people to those departments, is when you have more hands, then you're going to spend more dollars. You're going to be going through more material, more work. So we've got to be thoughtful in how we approach that as well. So, additional thoughts from the group?
Well, in my view, Eric, this is something you've got to go do, and it ties directly into the conversation or the point I raised earlier about the line replacement that we know we're going to have to face. And the sooner we get started, much like the gas system, the gas folks and Randy and his team, they've got a plan laid out, laying out a long-term plan like you've done on roads, I think will be important so we don't get surprised, because we know we're going to have breaks unless we go start addressing this.
So we're working on this one diligently. We'll have that plan put together in the next couple weeks.
Good.
I'll integrate in what longer term our asset infrastructure is tending to look like too, or the asset replacement on the infrastructure looks like as well.
Yeah, because it's all going to tie in together. You got the maintenance that you're off working on, plus the replacement. It's just one integrated plan. So it's good that you're taking the lead to pull this together.
Yeah. Questions, thoughts? Was that chart we added in? All right. Slide 19. All right, building asset. Yeah, we talked through that. We've got our action item to go work on building that combined plan for all of our facilities. Slide 20. Yeah, the hot fund, we're taking our projected revenues down to, from about 625 down to about 440 for this next year. We've lowered some of our salaries. Certainly, we have to spend 50% of that on advertising, and then the rest of the dollars go to running the visitor center along with events. I think the events are the big drivers for Alpine. You know, people like to come out here and experience, whether it's, music or festivals, art, dances and things of that nature.
When will the hot committee get up and running, Eric?
We'll have our first member on consent agenda tonight. We do need, other nominations from council so we can get at least 5 people started. I know we've got a committee of 7, but
Yep.
It would be good to at least start with 5.
Yep.
I don't know if the rest of council has some ideas on some people that they're interested in appointing there.
I've spoken to a couple of people, but no commitments. The hot committee meetings, will they be open to the public for public input?
Yes,
Yeah,
They
they'll be
will.
different than anything else, Ramon. They have to follow TOMA, and all of those are open.
Chris and I will be there at all of the hot committee meetings as well. And we just act in an ex officio role. We help facilitate the discussion, and then they'll make the final vote recommendation. But we really need them to come together. It'd be nice if every counselor could grab another person before our July 21st meeting, so we could get them on the committee and formed and looking at the applications first part of August. Because we can approve the budget at whatever dollar amount we want, but then council's going to need to approve the allocations back in early September. So it'd be nice to have somebody, this group up and sorting through the stuff in August with Chris and I. Non-department subsidies. We've certainly got the Family Crisis Center, library, Children's Advocacy. Shanna Sullivan's asked us to reconsider. They had dropped off a couple years ago. Certainly, I think there's going to be downward pressure in this space right now because a lot of folks aren't donating as much to causes. Kind of seeing how things sort out with COVID. So a couple of these organizations are probably going to be more challenged this next year. My sense is they'll all survive here in Alpine. The core ones all seem to be pretty resilient bunch. Any other thoughts on? Okay. Slide 22. Fire department. Yeah, this is one Chief and I are really starting to get engaged with Mike on. We just got to push a little harder on this. We've got two facets going there. One is, they're low staffed. Certainly losing Mark this last year and then losing Tracy. Mark was the fire captain and Tracy was the assistant. And so that workload then got piled on somewhat to Mike and some of the others. We're navigating through, I know there was this interlocal agreement signed between the county and the city, but trying to work back with the county on, their thoughts and expectations. We're trying to get an asset list from them right now to see what they're showing on their books. And ultimately, I'd like to see us be able to help that staff grow back up to 20, 25 people, volunteers, and then contemplate, could you have a little mini station either south of the city or on the west side of the city to help facilitate in fires that happen right outside Alpine? Because the way the budget at least works right now is we tender payment on all the fire calls, but if there's a fire call in the county, then those calls, we send that bill on what those payments were made to the firemen back to the county.
Eric, there was talk when David Lamrick was the EMC of having one in the west side where the old original food bank was at, right, for 1703, and then the other one was at the old general store there at Double Diamond.
Right.
And are we going to still, that's what you're talking about, pursuing those?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we need to sit down and have more of a collaborative session with the county and their EMC, and any of the county commissioners, and really determine what it is their expectations are as far as outputs from the Alpine Volunteer Fire Department, because we are responding to fires in the northern part of the county.
All right.
Eric, Chief would like to make a comment.
Sure.
He's still mute. Oh, there you go.
Okay. No, I didn't have anything to say.
I thought you wanted to go over the fire stuff, Chief.
No.
No? Okay.
Any other questions on fire? So Maria, I know you've been the designee with the county. I know you've tried multiple times to get a hold of their liaison. Maybe this is something we could have a letter written from all of council requesting, a joint workshop or powwow or something, if you think that might be helpful.
Sure. Anything.
Who is their liaison, Maria?
It's Coach.
Payanis?
Yeah.
Coach Payanis.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a joint meeting would be really, really helpful. Workshop setting type thing would be great.
I would like that.
Great.
I mean, this thing's been way overdue. We need to start addressing it and get it resolved. Been, I think, almost 2 years in the making?
Yep.
Thank you. Slide 24, please, Megan. All right, Transportation Committee. So we will have 2 members effective
Yes.
tonight. Thank you, Councilor Stevens. This is one that we probably pivoted off of quite a bit, simply because we've been focused so heavily on COVID-19. But the fact of the matter is, humans' need for supplies isn't going to go anywhere. And truck traffic is a primary driver. And the railroad industry is trying to gather more and more steam in determining how we best handle that traffic coming in and out. Would be good to have, the seven community leaders to come together and help with, a common workshop, open forums, and get ideas from the community on different plans and strategies to address. So, along with the hot committee, I'd ask council to look at submitting another name. This one's not as urgent as the hotel occupancy tax, but certainly we'd like to get these people in place by the end of August, so they can start really doing quite a bit of research, because any bit of movement or change that we make with TxDOT or Union Pacific is going to require years of work to accomplish. So if somebody really wants to participate and help out in the community growth strategy, and they're a thinker and a reader and this would be a great committee for them to be on. Sound good?
Mhm.
All right. Slide 25. Employee wages. So last year we distributed 5.5%. What Megan and I have built in the draft budget is a projection on a 3%. And we will also have that so that you see the total dollar implication of that 3% across each department, and then as a city as a whole. I know the county and some other departments have said, or other entities have said, hey, we're not going to do any raises, we're going to do cuts. I think in Alpine, we've been able to actually navigate pretty well financially through COVID. We've also done quite a bit of reduction in staff and reallocation of responsibilities. Outside of what we're really looking at with utilities and with chief, an extra position for chief, I think we've done a nice job at really cutting back on our staff volumes and asking people to pick up more tasks and responsibilities. So we're seeing folks really respond to that.
Yeah, my sense, Eric, is y'all have done very well on this. I think, making sure we're tied to market. And I like Lucy's comment, making sure that people have the incentive to go get licenses and they get the financial reward for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I give a lot of credit. Chief Martin put a lot of thought into structuring a pay plan that incentivizes folks for getting up through that first step officer, and then the intermediate, and then the master officer.
Yep.
And, then the retention of that, retention's the key for us.
Yeah.
We're really working hard to try to keep all of our employees. And so.
How many employees did we lose out of the PD?
Well, he's turned, 2/3 of his officers.
Wow.
Maybe half. We lost a couple. The county picked up one. Fort Stockton came after our officers. Fort Stockton was given free rent, free room and board, free rent up there. So, even a like for like pay, it seemed to be a huge increase. I would not want to work in Fort Stockton myself. I know some people are very content and happy in Fort Stockton, but Alpine to me is on a magnitude of 3 times better than Fort Stockton. But
yeah,
some of these folks are young, right, Mayor? So they're chasing the dollar still.
Right. They're not looking at longevity.
Yeah. I mean, our benefit package is fantastic, though I would say other governing entities have nice benefit packages too. A couple of things that we're trying to do with PD is certainly open up some of the overtime opportunities through the grants. Also, things like security at Civic Center, we basically mandate that they hire us. They can't hire the sheriff. It's our facility.
The chief real quick said that since he's been on board, we've lost 3 full-time and 1 part-time.
Yeah.
For a total of 4.
Good.
Yeah, and he's recruited some really fantastic folks and expanded some responsibilities. I mean, we see like with Phil, he's picking up the fire inspector piece as well. So real happy with that team. Any thoughts?
Nope.
Slide 26. So we talked about that. The staffing on the water wastewater PD. That's the other one that Chief and I are working through is not only those call it the incremental raises as they achieve certifications, but then also adding another staff member. I mean, certainly across America, you've got this defund police ideology, which to me, in the city of Alpine, if you defunded the police, that also defunds your 911 dispatch center. So if somebody calls 911, there's nobody there to answer. I think what Chief did really good at demonstrating through that Black Lives Matter march was that we're very engaged with the public, and they're doing the public's doing a good job at reaching out to the police for added value and needs, which I think is the right temperament that we want to set in the community.
But, I'd like to comment on that march that all of law enforcement did a fantastic job there. So no way in my mind will I ever defund them.
Right. I agree with you, Mayor, 100%. we'll dig into this a little bit more on the second budget workshop as you have a chance to kind of look through our draft budget and see what the implications are on dollars. Okay. Next slide, please, man. Property tax. Ooh, yeah. Everybody loves to talk about property tax. well, we all want to pay less tax, right? But then when we look at how do we fund initiatives within the community and making sure that they're the appropriate initiatives that are driving value for the community. The first pass that we got from the tax office, the assessed values were a little bit lower than what we first thought. We reached out to Councilor Stevens, who's our liaison on that. He worked back with Denise. Denise gave Megan some updated numbers. So our assessed values are up across the city. What that means is for us to maintain that property revenue, property tax revenue, it would lower the effective rate if we just left the revenue the same. I've always been an advocate of trying to leave your tax rate the same if you can and just collect additional revenue based on increased assessed values.
Yep.
So we're working through that, look at that right now.
Yeah, and just to help council in terms of what all is going on, one of the things we've done on the tax board is switch systems. When Matt White was here, there were like 56 different categories for just residential property. And the poor tax assessors had a devil of a time trying to keep all that up. This year, we switched over to something called Matrix. We brought in an outside consultant who's really helped us simplify that model. And so that's where the tax rates are, a conversion to Matrix. And then next year, they'll go through an update, based upon the assessed values and drive things in a way that makes sense. We're also looking at how we get data from actual property sales, because some of our properties are low, some are a little bit high. We want to get them really accurate based upon what the sales values are. So that's kind of the broader strategy that we've been working at the Brewster County Assessment District Board level. But I'm with Eric. In my view, we have to live off the increased valuation, not increased tax rate.
Total agreement with that, guys. I think that'll make our residents very happy.
So we'll prepare with that view in mind.
Yep, good.
Okay. Next slide. Financial policy. One of the other pieces that Megan and I are working through right now, so council will have a better view at it, is we have money in reserve that we've set in reserve, but we also have a fund balance in our checking account when we don't spend everything we budgeted from the previous year. And so if you repeat that process over and over and over again, your fund balance gets much higher. We used some fund balance in reserve to target the paving this year that we're doing with Jarrett. And we're going to have to look at that again to help close or help make that possible to finish off the rest of it this next year. But I'm trying to, Megan and I are working on a view where you'll see exactly what our fund balance is and see what our reserve dollars are. And that will help us identify if we want to get more aggressive on doing some capital work in this year or next year, how we would finance that. Because we know generally based on what we're projecting, our revenues are going to look like across the different facets. And so if we're wanting to spend a little bit more than what our perceived revenues are going to be for the year, then we would have to look at the reserve or that fund balance. And then I think the other piece of it is at the end of each year, how do we address that fund balance and actually move it into a reserve? so that it's easier, more easily seen by council. So that's some of the pieces we're working on right now. I think, council made some comments about covering emergencies, which to me is super important, right? We don't want to have to go out for some short-term debt because we have such a major emergency, and we're continuing to aggressively pay down our debt. That's going to free up more dollars each year. And ultimately, we're going to need to set a level, I think, this year where we say, what do we want to have in reserve across each fund? What's that goal? What's that target? And then each year whittle away at closing that gap if we haven't reached that reserve level yet. That'll give us the ability to manage through any sort of major emergency or crisis. That make sense?
Yep.
Yes.
Rick, that
Perfect.
goes back to your realistic reserves.
Yes.
Having a realistic number to move and not a percentage that we may or may not have.
Yep.
Eric, one quick question. Considering the the situation we're in with the pandemic, are there any potential dollars out there, either at the state level or the federal level, that might help supplement our needs here at our local level? And that way, then we can, add our additional funds that we have on hand onto the reserve.
Yeah, good question. So part of that CRF funding, we've gone back and taken every bit of expense that we've had relative to response to COVID, all of the PPE we've bought, all of the wage that we've spent with Chris Ruggia, who normally would be coming out of the hotel occupancy tax. We're taking all of that and paying for it through these grants so that we build up that reserve and we don't spend so much out of those funds. The schoolhouse is another project that we would, be able to fund through that grant and not have to take money from the city to do that. So we can either keep that money in reserve or address it to another project. And Marcy and Megan continue to look at all the different programs that are coming down to see where they fit. Like we got some money for the airport. We're using that against one of our projects out there at the airport right now. And so 40% of our 10% is covered by that grant.
Hopefully can tap into some other sources because we need them.
Yep. Free money's a good thing. I mean, nothing's ever free, but if they're giving it out. We want to be at the front of the line.
Free money with a lot of paperwork.
I always said, if there's 6 buckets of ice cream, I'm going to be at the front of the line for one.
Don't get any paper cuts, Megan.
All right. I think we got one more. Other considerations. Gosh, I think we've talked about all of these.
Yep.
Great. And it's only 5:05.
Ooh,
Everybody gets a 25-minute break.
we need it.
Mhm. Okay, who will make a motion, please? Yes,
Mr. Mayor,
sir.
I move that we adjourn until 5:30.
Okay, is there a second?
Second
I'll
that.
second.
Okay, several seconds on that, not debatable, so we'll adjourn. What time is it?
503.
To log back
03.
in, what do we do?
Leave it on.
Break. I'll call this meeting to order and we'll start with the pledge. Everybody, please rise again. I pledge allegiance
I pledge of the United States of America and to the republic
For which it
that
stands,
stands
one
one
nation,
nation, under God, indivisible,
With liberty, justice for all.
Thank you all very much. And now, do we have a quorum, please, City?
Mayor, we do have a quorum, and the notice was posted at 1 p.m. on July 2nd, 2020.
Okay, public comments are limited to 3 per person. And we have no presentations or recognitions at this meeting. So we'll start with the mayor's report. I have none. City attorney, I don't see any. And city manager report.
Yes, sir. Honorable Mayor and City Council, I've got a report this evening. Megan, can you go ahead and get that up on the screen for us? Awesome. Thank you. A little picture from 2014. This was one of the finalists in the photo contest. Always like this picture. 2 young ladies enjoying raising animals here in Alpine. In the area. All right. Can we go to slide 3? I'll give the COVID update. Dr. Escobar will be presenting at the Commissioners Court meeting tomorrow morning, and as she's expressed with several people her time, she gets pulled in a lot of different directions, and certainly with some of the contact tracing, she can't attend every public meeting, but the slides that she'll be discussing tomorrow with Commissioners Court, she shared some excerpts for me to share with council this evening. We certainly, she continues to look at the New York Times data, as do many of us. The new cases reported in Texas, we certainly see where that spike started to occur. The bolder line is that 7-day moving average. When you look at the chart below it, one of the things that many communities as well as medical community are looking at is, with the increased case count, what is that going to do to the reported deaths in Texas? And we see from early part of June to where we're at now, the death rate is continuing to climb a little bit, or started back climbing again. And what we knew early on with COVID is that the treatments were not as good as what we're starting to see now. Also, there was some pushing of people into nursing homes and things of that nature. We saw more of that in the Northeast, so it certainly hurt the death rate in the country early on. But as treatments have gotten better, one of the certain causes for alarm is that, the case rates going up as well as the death rate is starting to go up. Hospitalizations in the state are climbing. We're seeing less ability to transfer to our sister hospitals in the Midland, Odessa area. San Antonio, CNN did a big piece on San Antonio, some of the challenges they're having, as well as what we're seeing in Houston. So in discussions with Rick Flores at the hospital, he certainly continues to work with other CEOs that are running other hospitals in the area to ensure if we've got to move patients out of Alpine, that there are available places to move those patients to. So next slide, Megan. The case counts, as we look US, Texas, Tri-County, all the way down to Brewster County, certainly we see that the Tri-County area has a similar case per 1,000 as the US, certainly higher than Texas. But then when we jump down to Brewster County, our cases are close to double what we see in the US. There, and I'll talk a little bit about tests on the next couple slides, but we, I think, certainly from a community perspective, are all aware of the rise in cases. So next slide. I think the slide 5, when I came across this one the other day, I actually really liked it, because if you look at the middle right third of it, when cases were falling flat or rising, you come down to Brewster County, what you really see is that from March 1st all the way till, that June timeframe, we had nothing going on. And then all of a sudden, boom, they rose real quick. And you look across Texas as a whole, there was this kind of gradual increase, and then, it's certainly paced up since things started reopening. But when you look at Brewster County, we're far right, and it was very quick, which leads to some of the bigger questions about testing as a whole. We know we had 3 days of consistent testing, 18th, 19th, 20th of June, and we came back the 23rd and we tested. Between those two dates, there were close to 1,000 tests done. And then there wasn't another mobile test after that. So we're projecting right now that another mobile test site will come in next Wednesday, July 15th. We did get notification that there was one yesterday in Marathon. About 215 folks attended that one yesterday. But the mobile test sites are good because people don't have to pay, can sign up and go, or they can show up and get a test done, versus going to your doctor and having to pay for the test if your insurance doesn't cover it. And the volume of testing, especially coming off of 4th of July weekend, is going to be important. We had certainly mask mandate from the governor the week before, as well as local ordinances that went into effect, but needing to test to see how we're doing. And so I get questions, and I know ECTA does, relative to, we got up into the 140s and then things seemed to level off. There's not as robust testing going on in the community right now. So I think coming back and having additional tests will allow us to understand, say we do 200 or 300 more tests next Wednesday, what does that look like? Did we grow by 30 or 40 cases, or did we grow by 3 or 4? And so I think that's of keen interest. Any questions from council up to this point?
Yeah, I think we're up to 146 as of this afternoon now.
Okay. Yeah, and I've got a couple slides down. I've got the Facebook posting that the county shared this morning or earlier today.
And
So-
I think I'm sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
What we need to do also on the city website is let folks know that the testings we're doing is free. I think some are reluctant to get tested because I think they have to pay for it. I got a few calls this weekend on it, and I sure them know they're free. Go to it. You go to your doctor, like you said, you got to pay for it.
Yeah, we'll get that out on the flyer for this mobile testing this next week.
Okay, thank you.
Slide 6. This was one that ECTA shared, which I actually thought gave some really good information. The breakdown of ages, teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s have been our highest category, and then tailing to the 60s, 70s, and 2 people in their 80s and 1 in their 90s. So it's spreading across a whole variety of age groups. And then the Brewster County COVID-19 dashboard is something that we looked at, similar to what was shown in 1.3 acres, where you have the rising number of cases, what's active, how that comes off, and then the recovered cases. And so obviously the goal is to get active cases down to 0. Next slide. This is what the mayor was alluding to. Brewster County updates on their Facebook page. I know many people on the call go to that a couple times a day to see the amount. Shows Tri-County how many tests have been run. It doesn't break it down per community. It just looks at Tri-County as a whole, and then negative results. Local hospitalizations are something that we're queuing on as well. So 4 locally hospitalized right now. And then recoveries versus positive results. So generally speaking, the math on that, 65 active cases still in Brewster County as of this morning.
Eric, on that, if they go to a private doctor, it wouldn't show on there, correct, or would it?
It will. It will. But if they go to a private doctor, it will show on that number of tested or the negative results. The difference is when they go to their private doctor, when the result comes in, it goes directly to the doctor, and then the doctor would notify their patient on the result. If they go to a mobile testing unit, then the regional support person handling the testing sends a text out to somebody if they're negative. If they're positive, they call them and start the contact tracing process.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. All right. Next slide, please, Megan. So our City of Alpine facilities, we continue to have City Hall closed. I mean, open on appointment if somebody needed to meet with one of our team members. We would, for a billing purpose or whatnot, then we would meet with that individual, schedule a time with Diana or Susan. We're not hosting standard type meetings here. We do everything either through Google Meet or through Zoom. Visitor Center, we've done a good job at keeping front porch full of materials, though when we saw the mask order as well as gatherings of 10 or less in Big Bend National Park closing last week, the amount of visitors certainly curtailed through Alpine. Old City Hall, we continue to operate. Permits get filed in the front lobby. Rest of the facility we keep closed to the public. The part that we had been contemplating is, do we have that budget workshop for the July 21st meeting? Do we have that at the Civic Center where we could provide some social distancing, have more open air flow? But I think, until we see gatherings of 10 plus being permissive again, wouldn't be wise to host a city meeting. I don't think the optics on it are right. Even though there's exceptions to everything, I just don't think the optics on it are right. And I think we showed on the budget workshop earlier today, it was very productive using Zoom. Pool will continue to remain closed. We did have the mask signage. I emailed everybody last week. We printed up a couple hundred of those posters, 11 by 17 posters, 200 in English, 200 in Spanish. Thanks Leslie Mendoza for translating for us. And I think they turned out very nice. We've been distributing those across town. That's our first level of messaging out to the community. We've got to get level 2 messaging this week. I think that's going to be a collaborative effort on testing and helping people ensure that they know that just because we haven't been doing testing and we don't see our case count coming up, COVID could still spread, and how we ensure that we're following a good protocol around masks, hygiene, and the social distancing. And then we do have a CV team meeting next week. We're trying to really get this additional testing set up, and I've got a meeting tomorrow. Cynthia's set up with one of the TDEM regional support folks. We've invited Stephanie Elmore and the judge to attend as well. Next slide. Well, one of the other things we've talked about is utility billing. Right as we were getting into February this year, we had moved our disconnect process up to 1 month, 1 year, 1 month in arrears, and we would disconnect. So we've asked Stephanie to go back and let's kind of look at what we're doing right now and map out a schedule for the remainder of 2020. And that's what we have here. Somebody's going to have to be 3 months or more in arrears before we disconnect them for the next few months. And then we'll throttle that back to 2 months over the last quarter of the year, and then get back onto that 1 month in 2021. So, make sense?
Yep.
Okay,
Some questions? Or are we good? Or are we ready for Judge Stewart?
we're ready for Judge Stewart. Let's go with the city staff updates.
All right.
Hello?
Hello.
Hey, we can hear you.
Hi. Okay, you can hear me? All right.
Mhm.
Well, we've had dockets in January, February, and March. Most of the cases are the normal ones. Our animal control cases are still they are most of our docket, which we've come to expect. However, of course, now with the city code and ordinance people, we are beginning to see more of those cases, and having a little bit of trouble figuring out, what we need to do with those. A lot of people are complaining that they didn't get notice, and of course, did they need notice? I mean, it's in the ordinances, but anyway, that's been something that we might want to discuss at some point. And I wanted to let you guys know that the court office lobby is closed right now, but if a person wants to come talk to Lorena, they can make an appointment by telephone. And so it is available. It's just not open all the time. And on another note, our January, February, and March dockets were conducted within the Office of Court Administration protocol. Everyone wore masks. We only let one, I guess, defendant in at a time. We're going to do that again for July, but we're going to try to start in August doing our court by Zoom. Now, I am completely electronically challenged, so that's why we're not doing it in July. So I'm going to get help from anybody who can help me, but I don't know if it'll be worth a try. I'm not sure how many defendants that will show up by Zoom. There's a lot of people that don't have computers, don't have access, don't have Wi-Fi. So we'll just see. And if it's not working and we're not getting a lot of response, then we'll just go back and do it by the OCA protocol. The way we did it last time, Cynthia opened up I don't know, what do you call that area where all the events are?
The Civic Center.
The Civic Center, yes. And so the door was open for the defendants to go there. They were spaced out 6 feet. And then the bailiff, Chief Martin, just had one come in at a time. So it worked real well. I mean, for us. Now, them, I don't know. They had to sit and wait, but of course they always have to sit and wait. Anyway, we'll try the Zoom in August and see how that goes. And then just kind of go from there. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to ask. Now, the notes that y'all have are the hillside or hill country notes, and they're not reflective of what we've been doing. We've probably had 30 to 40 on a docket, and we probably get, that may not be right. We probably have close to 50 or 60 on a docket now with the code enforcement coming, and probably only a third of those people show up, but that's really what we've had the last 2 years. And so we've gotten money from some. We usually get money every time. But again, the hill country numbers they're not correct. I don't know how they get those. So I'm not telling you to ignore them, but I can't figure anything out by that.
Yeah, Sandy, one of the things that I do when you or Lorena post the docket, I take a copy of that and forward it to council so they're seeing the nature of the cases that are coming.
Okay, good, great. So you
that
do
one
see
you sent out last week, yeah, they all got a copy of that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you would probably have noticed that there were a couple of 3 people on there that had multiple 20, 30 citations. And so these are the people that I think we're trying to get them to clean up their yards. They have cars there, or they're operating a business out of their home. And so that's kind of what we're working on right now.
Hey, Sandy, Rick Stevens here. You commented earlier on about code enforcement, that we need to talk about it. What do you want to talk about?
Well, what I'm hearing as the judge in the court is that the people coming are unhappy about getting a citation without, and I'm going to say without any notice, without someone coming to them and say, okay, you've got to do whatever, clean up mow your grass or get those things away. And I'm going to, otherwise I'm going to come back and give you a citation. Now, that's not required, but I think because in the last how many years, people have not been given citations. And so they're not used to someone just coming in and slapping a citation. I'm just saying, is there a way, and I don't know the answer, is there a way to be more, I don't know, user-friendly possibly, is there a protocol that we could, at least for the first few months, put in place where they're not just slapped with something unless it's egregious, you know, and so that I'm hearing complaints. There's a lot of complaints.
Rick, this is Rod, and what Sandy's talking about is a lot of these people say, well, you know, if somebody had told me to do X, to clean it up or to do whatever, I would have done it. And they come to court and they say, as soon as I got the ticket, I cleaned it up. And if somebody told me before I got the ticket, I would have cleaned it up. And
Yeah.
And so why do I have to pay $140 now since I've fixed what the problem was? And so those people are in a different category than the scofflaws that Sandy was talking about, where they have 30 or 40 tickets and they've repeatedly ignored the tickets and they still got junk in their yard and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Eric, would you comment? Does David give out warnings or does he immediately go to citation?
Well, so let me kind of take a step back, because Robert Polanco and I used to talk about whether you give out warnings or not. One of the things that Polanco had come to the conclusion on back in 2015, 2016 is if you give a warning out and you consistently do that, then you train people, hey, don't clean up your stuff until you get the warning. Now, there are a lot of citizens who they don't know, they get the warning, they go clean it up. But then you've got your perpetual violators that wait until they get a warning before they take action. And so, Tony, this is this point right now where I think we're going to have to make a decision from a council perspective when we look at the code of ordinances, and do we want to make an adjustment there and allow for some type of warning, or, you know, if it's a repetitive warning, so it's the same person, then you're going to go straight to a ticket. And so I think we probably want to spell that out a little bit more clearly within our ordinance.
Yeah, I thought, Eric, that sometime back when Polanco was here, that they were supposed to be issued or made a positive contact with him about things that were the issues that were going on their property. And if they didn't take care of it, then they would get a citation. And so that's what my understanding was.
I agree. I do think we need to give them a warning. I also think that we need to maybe look at like programs like the one that Odessa is doing, where they go and help a lot of the people that can't do the work for themselves, the elderly. I know that the Odessa Code Enforcer team does that. I don't know if Adelena can come up with if there's a grant for that or not, or if we can even implement that.
Another alternative, council, could be maybe a change to the ordinance to where if somebody's given a citation, but they take care of the issue within 10 days, then they won't have to pay the penalty. That would sort of be like a warning, but it would be an automatic fine if they didn't get it cleaned up. So that, once again, that's something for the council to think about.
Yeah, and this is part of the reason that I queued this particular ordinance up on that chart that I shared with council a few weeks ago, that it needs attention. I mean, we need a council member to sponsor this discussion with, at least with David Hale and myself. I mean, the only thing I would guard against is saying we're guaranteeing you a warning before a citation. There has to be something to eliminate the perpetual violators that says, you'll get one warning in a year on a particular type of violation, or you'll get one warning every 24 months. Because we do have, and this is what used to drive Robert Polanco nuts. We had people that would wait for him to give them a warning, and then they would do the work.
Well, I think on habitual ones, they should get the one warning, and thereafter they should be cited because they know better.
Yeah. So that's where we're going to need a council member to work back with David and I on that ordinance revision.
I'll do it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got a question for you, Judge.
Okay,
I got a question for you.
okay.
A while back, we passed our ordinance on the railroad. Have we issued any citations or have they been cooperative in the amount of time they spent there on Fifth?
I know that we have one on our docket, which is going to occur on the 14th, so next Tuesday.
Yep.
Mhm.
And Mr. Ponton may be able to address that because this is my first docket with that actual ordinance violation coming up, so I'm not sure.
Okay.
Rod, do you know?
I've had no contact from the railroad, but I'll reach out to the railroad lawyer in Houston and remind her to be at our docket. And we'll see what kind of response we get, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
All right, thanks, Judge Stewart.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Hadn't seen you in a while.
Got to come to docket.
There you go.
Okay. I'll zoom in.
Okay.
All right, so Megan will pop the PowerPoint back up, and I had to pull Eddie off of working, and I apologize to Eddie. He's doing amazing things out there, and I was hounding him to get some pictures because I know council wanted to see some pictures and listen to all the work that Eddie's doing in the field. So,
I am under the impression that Eddie is going to speak through Leslie's connection. Is that
okay.
correct? Okay. Sorry, Eddie. I see your name on here, but there's no sound or video, so just want to make sure I got the right person.
Yes, yeah, that's me. Yeah, I don't have a camera on my monitor yet, but we'll fix that next time.
Right. So, Eddie, can you see the slides that we have up for you?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, just to give you guys a quick rundown of the paving projects. We'll start with Jarrett's Alley project. As you can see here, it's on 4th Street, looking to 6th Street. The whole alley is pretty much complete except for the part between 6th and 8th Street. We're waiting on Scott and their guys to put in some water taps, I think, and then we'll do the sub base and go ahead and put the hot mix on there. I wanted to get some pictures close to the gas meters, which we decided to just put the curve around it. Reason being that in the future, if we have a leak or anything like that, we can just dig that right off. We don't have to break the asphalt or anything like that. Next slide, please. This is, of course, around the administration office. This on the left-hand side is 11th Street. He completed that block last Friday. He did just a little bit of curving on that. The middle one is 12th Street. So as you can see there, he already done his subbase, his curving. On the right side picture as well. So he's gonna get ready to hot mix anytime soon. I think they were having some problems with CSA as far as their asphalt machine broke down. So I think he's having to go somewhere else to get it, but hopefully we'll get that going and things will come along faster at a faster pace.
Yeah, you're right, Eddie. That's what he told me, that he's having to go back up to Van Horn to get it, but he's got a consistent supply coming out of Van Horn.
Yes. Next slide. So right here, this is starting on South 2nd Street. This is the last 10 blocks we have seal coated. We like to go ahead and paint our manholes, and that little blue dot over there on 3rd Street picture is where that water cutoff is, just to make sure that, you know, the water guys have a leak or they have a source stop, they can right away identify where the cutoffs are. Next slide, please. This is South Berkeley, Phelps and Cockrell Street. Again, they're kind of wide streets, but you know that CRS2 is working pretty good for us. I think that you go ahead and using that MS2 for a primer is working very well because it's actually going into the cracks like I had mentioned before, and it really lets that CRS2 really get a hold of that pavement. So we're doing pretty good with that. Next, please. This is 2nd Street between Avenue E and Sul Ross, right by Dr. Sanchez's office. We also did the one in front of Porter's. And the other one over here is on 12th, between 13th and 12th in Sul Ross. Next, please. This is the Lockhart and 7th Street. You know, right there is sort of like a turn. So the first side is you're looking east on Lockhart, and then the other side on that turn you're looking south on 7th Street. So next. Again, this is 11th Street. This first block is all the way to Avenue A. If you notice, this first half of the block is just like 28 feet wide. The rest of it is actually 36. But that's the way that whenever they did that road, it was designed that way. So we just went and paved it that way. The other one is 11th between Sul Ross and Avenue E. Next. So this is the list of our next blocks we're going to seal coat. As you notice, we've been averaging 12 to 13 blocks, but I went out and I looked at some additional blocks to do 18 blocks, reason being that this will give us 43 blocks. And I think right now we're at 26 blocks. We're pretty much where we need to be, but I wanna go ahead and try to get to 43 blocks, so we'll be a little bit ahead of the game and try to accomplish our goal that we have of those 100 blocks. So that's why this time around we're gonna do 18 blocks. Like I said, that will give us an equivalent of 43 blocks, and we'll be pretty good then. That's it for now.
Eddie, I want to take time to compliment you and your crew and your contractors. Done a fantastic job. I looked at the alley today. I was on 7th Street, or 8th Street rather, and I was looking eastward. And that's an awesome job with the curbing and everything there. And I think, and I've gotten some great compliments from the public about that. So great job, and tell your crew that, you know, we really appreciate all the hard work they're doing, especially in hot weather. It's brutal out there.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I've gone out there and looked at the streets and the alleys, and they look wonderful. Thank you so much.
All right. I was also going to mention that tomorrow we're going to do that little half a block on 11th Street to the railroad, and then that little half a block on 7th Street as well. Eventually, on the next round of seal coating, we're going to go ahead and do the block over there on Walker, which from Holland all the way going south to the end of the street right there by AutoZone, and the one by Subway as well. And we're also going to do 2 blocks on 14th and 15th. So long story short, by the time we do all that, so from one end of Holland all the way to Harrison to the other end of Holland, all that should be seal coated and paved, and it's going to tie into what Lance is going to do as well. So we'll have from one end of Holland to the other should be paved and seal coated.
Some work, Eddie.
Okay.
Any other questions for Eddie?
Nope. Just great job.
Yeah, no fooling. Great job.
Thank you.
All right, I think got Chief Martin.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
How are you doing?
Good. My quarterly report for April, May, and June, I must say, has been the last 3 months have been totally different than my 20-something years in law enforcement dealing with the COVID virus. So, but I'd like to kick it off. Next slide, please. We do have an additional addition to our department, Jonathan, and I have a hard time with his last name, Figueroa.
Figueroa.
Thank you. Thank you. He comes to us from El Paso. And I just wanted to mention that he did graduate top of his class. He is married. His wife is an RN. She's going to be talking to the hospital. And they just had a new little baby. And we're real excited to have him on board and have high hopes and expectations from him. Next slide, please. Capital improvements, we really haven't had that many compared to in the past. One of the things that we're working on through the judge is implementing a kind of like a Zoom type magistrate process that we can magistrate our prisoners before they're booked into jail. That is required now by the sheriff. And the other thing is we have purchased 10 gallons of disinfectant along with a dispenser that we were going to utilize it at all of the city offices and charge it off hopefully to the COVID. Next slide, please. The very few events, again, COVID played a big part of that. We had the high school graduation for the seniors. I think that went very well. The Black Lives Matter March. I think we did a really good job. We had a total of 8 different agencies assist us in this march, from federal agencies to state agencies. And really big thanks went out to them guys. We didn't need them, thank goodness. Everything went smooth. I think we did a pretty good job. We did assist with the traffic control at Sul Ross for the COVID testing. And that was 3 days, I believe. Yeah, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I believe it was. Next slide, please. We did have one promotion. Will Draws promoted to sergeant on May the 7th. He's doing a good job. Next slide. The training, due to the COVID, pretty much all of our training has been canceled. I'm encouraged our officers, and they have been doing a lot of training on OSS. It's Office of Strategic Services. They actually had a sale on their classes, 50 off. So I really encouraged them to get some classes under their belts that they needed. And then also, of course, TML is there, and we've done quite a few courses through them too. Next slide. As you can see, right here, I combined 3 months of our citations, our accidents, and our caseload. And that looks like 1 month in the past. So basically a third of what we normally do. We've limited our contact with the public. I still want the officers to be seen, answering all the calls. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please, Megan. Just starting at the top of the slide, we have had 6 employees quarantined and 3 were at one time. So the COVID has kind of played a big part in put a stress on us, if you would. I have closed our lobby. We do have a speaker at the door where we talk to the public, and we get an officer with them. We try to limit the access of them coming into the lobby to, and we do require them to wear face masks if they come in. Officers wear a face mask anytime they come in contact. If they stop a vehicle on traffic, they wear a face mask and preferably gloves. We have answered calls to assist with a COVID patient with the EMS to help load in the ambulance or whatever. But we have face shields, gloves, masks. We're trying to take every precaution we can. Hand sanitizers. We do have our sign trailers out, asking people to wear their mask. Currently, the Border Patrol has, they welcomed us to bring our patrol cars to the Border Patrol station, and they disinfect them for us after we transport a prisoner. So that helps out. Like I say, we're getting our sanitizer in and our equipment to disperse the sanitizer, and eventually we'll be able to disinfect our own cars. The community wearing the mask around town, I tell you, it's really been nice. People seem to want that, and they're wearing the mask for the most part, and they're making our job a lot easier. And I tell you, there are a lot of help. The people that don't wear the mask, the people that do wear the mask, encourage them to wear the mask. So they're kind of doing our job for us in a way.
The peer pressure.
Peer pressure, that's exactly right. So it's working out really good. There is one caution. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Megan. We had a visitor in Alpine, and we talked to him and asked him and encouraged him to leave the city. This was back on June the 19th. But I did want the citizens to just beware. The bears are moving around right now. This was on, let's see, what was it? 16th in West Marfa. So just be aware if you take your trash out at night or whatever. And I will tell, talking to the game wardens, if anyone leaves dog food out for their dog outside, that attracts the bears. So just keep that in mind. Just be aware of your surroundings when you go outside.
Chief, did you give the bear a COVID test?
I didn't really want to ask him, and he didn't really want me to ask. So, but he was encouraged to go move on, so he did.
And there'll
I
be
think-
more of that about with the drought we're having. They're looking for water, looking for food. So
And I will say, I tell you, thanks go out to the sheriff's office and also the game wardens. They were a big help in helping us get the bear out of the city.
good.
That's all I had. Any questions?
Yes, Chief, but not so much question, but or a question. Have you had any an increase in calls or comments from residents regarding the number of maybe wildlife coming, besides bears, coming into the city due to the hot weather? I'm just curious.
Due to the what?
Hot weather?
Hot weather?
Yeah.
No, not really. I tell you, for the most part, people are cooperating, wearing the mask. I haven't heard that many tourists coming into town. I did hear the sheriff make a statement, heard him make a statement the other day that there was a lot of campers down in the park. Of course, now the park's closed. I don't know where those people went, but I never got feedback from the motelers to see what their occupancy rate was right now. I was trying to find that out before I came on the meeting and never got a call back. But, you know, it seems like traffic is normal. Maybe not as much on the weekends, but there is some. I'm going to take a wild guess and say 30% are not residents coming into town.
Sounds good.
Increase. And that's just a guess. I don't have stats to back that up.
Okay, sounds good.
But I tell you, the merchants around town, the businesses, there has been no complaints. Everyone seems like they're wearing the mask, and everyone's doing the right thing, doing what we need to be doing at this time.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
You
Thank
bet.
you.
Okay.
That's it for our staff reports.
Okay, let's move on to the public hearings. Public hearings on the list views and comments on resolution 2020-06-04, resulting in $22,500 in funds from the U.S. Department of Agricultural Rural Development Community Facility Direct Grant Program to procure a new commercial mower to be used at the Alpine Gaspers Airport. Anybody on cue?
Mayor, I have
Megan?
not received any public comments on that issue or on the resolution.
Okay. Go ahead and put her in or put her through.
No, I haven't received any.
Oh, you haven't. I'm sorry. I thought you said because I keep saying this lady, Leslie, that's like on hold. Okay, my apologies. Okay, let's move over to the consent agenda. Minutes, financial reports, department written reports, board appointments, etc. Notice to the public, the following items are of a routine and administrative nature. The council has been furnished with background and supportive material on each item, and it has been discussed at a previous meeting. All items will be acted upon by one vote without being discussed separately unless requested by a council member, in which event the item or items will be immediately withdrawn for individual consideration in its normal sequence after the items not requiring separate discussion have been acted upon. The remaining items will be adopted by one vote. City Manager.
Yeah. Honorable Mayor, City Council, we have 6 items on consent agenda tonight.
Okay. Yes, sir. Mr.
Mr.
Stevens.
Mayor, I move that the consent agenda as presented be approved.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote on it. All those in favor of approving them, raise your right hand. All those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you all very much. We'll move over to the information or discussion items now. And we have none. And action items. To be accompanied by a brief statement of facts, including where funds are coming from, if applicable. Action items limited up to 10 per meeting after being called upon by the mayor, Mayor Pro Tem. Citizens are required to state the name and the ward in which they reside. Priority will be given to citizens of Alpine and those who own business or property in the city. Individuals who do not live in or own business or property in the city limits of Alpine will be allowed to speak if there's time available. And City Manager.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, action item number 1 is to discuss, consider, and take appropriate action on the first reading of Resolution 2020-06-16 investment policy for the City of Alpine.
Okay. Yes,
Mayor?
sir. Stevens.
I propose that the city council approve the resolution 2020-06-16, the investment policy for the city of Alpine, the one that we've all seen before.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion's made and second. Any discussion?
Mayor and Council, this is the one that we had reviewed with Megan
Right.
a few weeks ago. So I think we had good discussion back then and should be good to go with this.
Yeah. Okay, very good. See no discussion. Let's vote on it. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you. City Manager.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, second action item is to discuss, consider, and take appropriate action to approve the first and final reading concerning an application for a conditional use permit for Jimmy Ringo in an R2 zone for a home business to repair mowers. Property identification is 608 North 10th Street. Legal description is Kincaid Edition. Block A1, Lot W/3/5 of the north half or north/2. Record owner is Jimmy Ringo. In your packets, you had the information from Planning and Zoning. They had voted 4-1 to approve. I will say that we did have one comment from a resident who emailed in and said that they have not been bothered by this business. They live directly adjacent to Mr. Ringo. I also will say that council will have to consider this is a lawnmower business in the heart of a residential area, and what your thoughts are relative to that sort of approval or denial.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So I'll get the ball rolling. I propose the council approve the first and final reading of the application for the conditional use permit for Jimmy Ringo in an R2 zone for his home business to repair lawnmowers at the address of 608 North 10th Street.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, motion's second, and we'll have some discussion now. Any discussion?
I guess the only question is noise would be the only concern that I think anyone would raise. You know, most home businesses are pretty quiet except you're cranking up lawnmowers. But I don't know. I don't know this particular area very well. It's on an R2. Was there any more comments, Eric, that came through, or any thoughts? Does he operate in a garage so it's closed, it's soundproofed?
It's a, kind of an exterior type business.
Yep.
I think he's got some workshop space too, but inside, outside.
Yeah, my little brother had one in the R2 and never had an issue because it was in a shed where he worked out of. So no one ever complained about it.
Yeah,
Well-
my sense is, and I know we got the noise ordinance we'll get to at some other future meeting, but so long as he complies with that, I wouldn't think there'd be a problem.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I'm sorry, I interrupted you, Lucy.
No, it's okay. I mean, my thoughts on that are, if he's turning on a lawnmower and turning it off or whatever to fix it, it's not going to be any different than somebody turning a lawnmower to do their yard. I mean, how is it? I think it's a good idea.
Okay, thank you, Lucy. Anybody else? Okay, seeing no more discussion. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Is Betty on? I don't see her.
Yeah, she's on.
So,
Here.
There you go. I didn't see you on the video. Okay, let's go to item 3, city manager.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, last action item is to discuss, consider amending ordinance 2020-06-01, emergency ordinance of the city of Alpine that was approved by council June 30th, 2020, or additional action is determined by council. So simply put this out here to give council an opportunity to determine whether you wanted to make any adjustments to that emergency ordinance.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Yes,
just so we can have the discussion, not that I'm after anything, but I would propose that the council take no action relative to changing the emergency ordinance 2020-06-01.
Okay, will that include extending it?
Well, right now it says until the emergency is taken away, so it stays
Okay.
on so long as there's an emergency in the state.
Yeah, because I've already getting calls from that. So is there a second?
I'll
I'll
second.
second that.
Okay, any discussion?
So now we can have the discussion.
Now we can have the discussion.
Yeah, and so to that point, Eric, when does it expire?
I haven't seen anything. Eric, have you seen anything?
No, not from the governor yet.
Yeah,
But-
yeah,
It would expire when the governor says it expires.
yeah,
There
that's what I
you go.
thought.
Got
Yep.
what an answer.
Yeah, and I think we're, like we talked about earlier today, council, I mean, part of what I'm trying to track is on the, when do we start using the Civic Center again for maybe a larger council meeting? So that, we'll just keep looking at it every couple days and see what the governor determines to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we also have to look at the cases, see how much the wearing of the face mask has helped the city.
Mhm.
And that's very important because we had been doing so good until stop social distancing, stop wearing the mask, and then we exploded. So I think it's a good idea to extend it out and let's see, how it rolls.
Yeah, it's interesting, from a state standpoint, the 7-day moving average is over 7,000
Mhm.
and still
Mhm.
climbing. So it'd be a while before I think it goes away.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, any more discussion? Cynthia?
No, sir, I have none.
Okay. All righty. So let's go ahead and vote on it. All those in favor of it, raise your right hand. Opposed, like sign, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, let's move on now to city council members' comments, and I'll start with Maria this time.
I don't really have much to say. I love the updates were great, and I really am happy to see the streets being worked on and all the great improvements.
Okay, Ramon.
I just want to basically repeat what Councilman all the councilmen have said earlier, the streets are looking great. And thanks to Eddie and all his crew for a tremendous job.
Okay. And Lucy. Or
Uh,
Betty. Sorry, I jumped the gun. Betty.
Yes, I think the streets were definitely in need of improvement, and I think they're doing a great job.
Okay, thank you. Lucy.
I just wanted to thank everybody for the reports. I think they're good. We've come a long way. And Eric, you're doing a great job. Thank you
Thank you.
for all the updates.
Rick.
Yeah, just I echo everyone else's comments. The streets are looking terrific. The infrastructure is looking good. I'd also like to comment, we had a riveting budget meeting for those who chose to join the council and the mayor for the 2 hours prior to city council starting. And I think we're off to a good start from a budget process standpoint leading up to next fiscal year starts the 1st of October. So thanks very much.
You know, I'd like to thank the council, Eric, of course, and the staff for the great job that we're doing here. You know, the street improvements and working on this pandemic also. You know, I think the council and the entire staff has done a fantastic job, and also the public now that are aware of what happens when you don't wear that mask. You know, the pandemic just spreads like wildfire, and it's not regulated to any age bracket, because I was looking at stats, and it's going from teenagers all the way up to the 50s now. It's dropped actually 15 years from the benchmark they had said about seniors getting it. So everyone could be a possible candidate for the virus. But if we do the right thing, I think that we can get by this. And the sooner we do, then we can go ahead and start getting some kind of normalcy for our business community here also. And want to thank them also for cooperating with us in putting up the signs and making sure people do enter their buildings wearing a mask. That goes a long, long ways, I think, in slowing it down. We're not going to stop it, but in slowing it down. So thank you all very much, Council.
Mayor, I wanted to jump in and I just wanted to wish Councilor Fitzgerald happy birthday.
Oh, well, happy birthday.
Birthday.
Hey, Betty.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got an.
I know I'm not going to tell anybody my age.
If you don't tell mine.
That's a deal.
Okay, so let's go to, we got an executive session.
So, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Pursuant to Texas Government Code 55.1.071, consultation with attorney, I'll skip all the other stuff. I move that we move into executive session in order to discuss the county jail assessment.
Okay, so we'll just take a second on that one, please. Is there a
I'll
second?
second that.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion's
Rod, don't call me.
made. Motion's been made and seconded. We'll go straight into the executive session.
Yeah, and I'll set the other Zoom room up. I sent the link out earlier today for that. I'll pop over and allow you all in, and then we'll come back to this one when we're done.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
A second.
Okay, all those in favor? Raise your right hand.
Aye.
No, right hand. Thank you. We're back in regular session.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I propose that the city council take no action relative to the county jail accessibility item.
Okay, is there a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Ramon seconds it. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay. There's no action on it taken then.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adjourn.
Okay, is there a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, motion made and second. All those in favor, it's not debatable. Raise your right hand. We're out of the meeting, regular meeting. Y'all have a good evening.
Bye.
Everybody have a great rest of the evening.
Good evening.
Aye.
Okay.
Bye.